keeping all areas of life going well at once. How in the world do you do it? Most people say, oh, it's like a 3-ring circus. I don't know how I get one ring going, and then ring 1's going well, and ring 3 isn't going well. Ring 3's going well, and ring 1 isn't going well. 2 and 3 are going well, and 1 isn't going well. And they say, I just can't keep it all going at once. 1 Corinthians 14:40 says, let all things be done decently and in order. And if we're to have all things done decently and in order, how are we supposed to keep up with everything? I'm talking to all kinds of people, I realize that. I'm talking to people who are homemakers and also have jobs outside the home and have work in the church. They call that their 3 rings. Those are their 3 rings: the church, the job, and the home. Some of you just are working on a job and you do not have particularly too many home duties, except you live with your parents and mom does the cooking, and still you have church, job, keeping up your own clothes. No matter what your situation in life is, you have several things to do at once and to keep going well at once. If it's just your spiritual life we're talking about, of course the spiritual life should go in and out and permeate all parts of it, areas of our lives. But if it's just what we consider the spiritual part of our lives, Bible, soul winning, prayer, still you're wanting to keep everything going well at once. The people who just are soul winners and they spend most of their time all week soul winning don't know the Bible. And the people who just read the Bible don't go soul winning, and therefore they don't keep a balanced life, and they can't even keep the rings of their spiritual life going. Maybe they're a prayer warrior, but they aren't in the Bible, and they're not soul winning. There are people who are in the Bible and reading and they're praying, but they're not in church regularly. Or they do no church work in the work of the Lord on Sunday, where they can help someone be saved and can meet together, not forsake the assembling of themselves together, as the manner of some is, as the Word of God tells us. Or perhaps you just can't keep your relationships going. And you think, hey, I don't just have a 3-ring circus going of relationships. I have a 23-ring circus going. You perhaps have a mom and a dad, and a stepdad and a stepmom, a grandparent and a step-grandparent, and half-brothers and half-sisters, or even at the best, your mom, your dad, your aunts, your uncles, and you say, I talk with one, or I write to one, or I go see one, and then I don't go see the others. And if you park one place too long, and if you put too much emphasis on one friend and don't get around to the other friends, you have some friends who are hurt. Now, maybe they shouldn't be hurt, and if they were really loving the Word of God, like Psalm 119:165 says, great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend or upset them, then they wouldn't be hurt, but the fact is they are. And today there are a lot of jealousies in friendships because of the fact that families aren't as close as they used to be. There's a lot of emphasis placed on friendships, and if we don't keep going to different people and just have exclusive friendships or just one relationship and spend a lot of time on it, there are a lot of other people who are saying, how come you haven't called me? How come you haven't talked to me? And you say, I just don't care anymore. I'm just giving up. I just don't care. I'll do what I want to. No, let everything be done decently and in order. You're a homemaker, and you have the beautiful job of being a keeper at home. And so you have cleaning to do, you have cooking to do, and within cooking you have shopping, freezing, canning, baking, cleanup after cooking. You have you caring for the clothes, which means sewing them maybe buying them, watching for bargains, going to special places for resale shops, washing the clothes, keeping the clothes cleaned. There are a lot of areas about the clothes. Maybe decorating is part of being a homemaker, and I'm just naming a few of them. But just cooking, cleaning, clothes, and decorating. Let's say it's a 4-ring circus, and maybe you stop at the decorating part, and you just love decorating. And therefore, your bathroom's decorated, it's coordinated, everything's color coordinated. You can go from one room into the other, and the carpet blends right from one room into the other. The wall coverings, they don't say wallpaper anymore. The wall covering is beautiful, everything is great. You are a great decorator. But the cooking isn't too good at your house. And so that's not being a homemaker who has everything done decently and in order. Or perhaps you love cooking. You're a gourmet cook, or all you think about, as soon as you get up, though you may not overeat yourself, you love to cook. And you're thinking at breakfast time, when you're cleaning up after breakfast, you're thinking, what are you going to fix for lunch? And you're enjoying it. And you like everything to do with cooking. But you don't much like the way your house looks if someone looked into the storeroom or the garage or the or the spare bedroom, because cleaning isn't it isn't your thing. You're not keeping that ring of being a homemaker going very well. Well, or that person who is a church worker, a homemaker, a lady on a job outside the home. You say, I have rings within my rings, sort of like runs within my runs of the hose, you know, or I have rings that Saturn didn't know about. I think I'm going to give you one simple answer. We don't have rings. We just have one ring, and that's life. Just one circle. And I call that the circle of influence. Any of you remember, who have listened to my tapes before or my talks before, do you remember when I talked about the circle of protection? Where we had everything we like. We develop all kinds of interests and all kinds of people we like and all kinds of scripture verses. And if you've seen me do it, I've had people stand up and represent each of those scripture verses, each of those, every kind of tree I like, every kind of flower I like. I've had someone represent my dad, my husband, my aunt, my son, my daughter, all the people I like, all the hobbies, just everything, and that's my circle of protection. And I say, if we lose someone out of that circle of protection, if someone passes away or someone leaves us or moves away, there's a gap there, but we can still turn to other things in our circle of protection. We have a circle of influence. Perhaps that circle of influence involves mostly homemaking, and of course your church, but mostly homemaking. And you have different points on that circle. But instead of you're running from one circle to the other, how about your being in the middle of the circle and continuing to turn? I'm looking at a diagram on my note here, my notes, that is a circle, and I have X's at different places along that circle. For me, one X counts is the family. Now, my children are gone from home and married and away from home, but still they need to get the letters. I need to pray for them. I need to see to it that I get the pictures sent to each other, and see to it that David knows about Joy and Joy knows about David. And my husband, I need to know where he's going to be this weekend preaching. And every morning we go out together. And so even though I don't have young children at home and I'm at a different stage of family, and besides my family at my house, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law live close to us, and there are things I need to see about them almost every day, and every Wednesday night they come to our house for supper, before Bible study and prayer meeting on Wednesday night. And so and then there's my dad out in Kearney, Nebraska, and I want to be sure that a lot of times I try to be with him on his birthday, and I like for him to be with me and my sister and our families at Christmas time. And so there's my dad, and there's a lot of family. So even though I don't have children at home, okay, on my circle, there's the X that stands for family. A little bit along the way, there's the X that stands for Bible, soul winning, prayer, church, service, anything that you're doing in your service for God, or I'm doing in my service for God. And then on around, there is my Christian Womanhood, which is Christian Womanhood Tapes, Christian Womanhood Spectacular, Christian Womanhood Articles for the Christian Womanhood paper. Then I go on around, and there's teaching at the college, and I go on around, and there is Dean of Women's Work. And sometimes people say, how do you do all that? I don't do it all. Number one, I have other people who help me. And you people who have a circle going in your home, you have other people helping you too. Right away, just as soon as your children are able to walk, they're able to pick up things and do things, and you can start giving them little jobs, and as they get older, they can help you. And so you're continually walking that circle, guarding that circle of influence. Maybe I'm working on Christian womanhood and I want to stop. I'm just loving writing articles. And I want to keep on writing them, and I don't want to go to my classes. But that won't work. I won't be doing things decently and in order if I don't stop writing Christian womanhood articles and go on to my classes. So I keep walking that circle of influence. Just keep walking, walking, walking. Now, sometimes I stop walking the circle of influence, and there's nothing I can do to help the fact that I have to stop walking. There's been a time in my life lately when I stopped walking that circle of influence a couple years. It was cancer operations, and it was chemotherapy, and it was this and that and the other. And I really didn't walk that circle of influence very well for almost 2 years. And even now, I'm still not walking some of those areas of influence very well, but I am in the circle again. I am turning from one to the other. I'm in there again. Now, what happened when I was out? I had, for instance, Christian Womanhood. I had Mrs. Hayes, who has worked with me through the 11 years of Christian Womanhood, who kept the paper going. I had Mrs. Stubblefield, who's been with me for many, many years, who worked with the finances and with the everything that had to do with the business of the paper. Dean of Women's Office, Miss Fry, Carol Fry, has been with me with that and activities. I didn't mention activities. For, I think, 10 years or more. With the classes, Mrs. Moffat has been with me 10 years or more. And with the family, Miss Cooper has been helping within the family because of physical problems. She's been helping me within the home for quite a few years, 8 years or more. So I had already worked with different people. Now you're going to have a different circle of influence from what I have. You're going to be at a different age and a different stage in your life. Your children are going to be different ages from mine. It'll be a completely different situation. But you can apply this same idea to your life, no matter who you are, no matter if you're a teenage girl. If you're a teenage girl, you may have a babysitting job, and you have your classes, and you have helping at home, and you have a circle of influence. You have teenage soul winning. You have your prayer life. You have a Sunday school class with which you help, or a youth group that of which you're a part. Do you see what I mean? Every one of us has a different circle of influence. Of course, men at our college have this. And so at Hyles Anderson College, and sometimes I'll hear them saying, I just can't keep it, it's like juggling, I just can't juggle it all. It can't keep it all going. I've got the family, I've got the bus route, I've got my classes, I've got my job. How do I keep it up? By continuing to walk the circle of influence. Often, one of those men will say, I remember one guy on our bus route at Tennessee Temple University back when we were there more than 15 years ago. And when he came to our college, he loved bus work so much and loved those bus kids, and I'm so glad that he did. But I remember one week he spent 35 hours visiting the bus route and being on the bus route and taking the people to church and getting them home and so forth. That's commendable, except he was flunking his classes. And therefore, it's not doing everything decently and in order. So you go to the bus route, and my husband counseled him. I remember, and he did graduate from college and happens to be working right with my husband here at Hyles Anderson College now. But probably wouldn't have been if my husband hadn't counseled him to keep walking his circle of influence. And even though he loved the bus route, he was going to have to walk away from it certain times and come back to it then a little bit later in the week. So most of the time, the reason we think we're juggling too many areas at once and our lives get so messed up and we say, nothing's going well. Just nothing's going well. I am so frustrated. I just can't handle it. The reason is simply because we do not keep turning within one circle. We do not have 15 circles. We have one circle, and we must keep turning. All right, you say, but what about, Marlene, what about when you were out the 2 years? Okay, when I was out the 2 years, it got pretty difficult for me. It was frustrating for me and frustrating for the people who were working for me in all of those areas. Not because they weren't just as good as I would be, but because of the fact that I was the leader. I even remember going to Mayo Clinic finally and saying, I have to know, am I going to get well or am I not going to get well? I've got to give up all these areas of my life if I'm not going to get well because it's too frustrating on the people working. And I can remember Dr. Fregus, the doctor who was working with me at Mayo Clinic at that time, and I can remember his saying, now let's see, your husband works until what time in the evening? And I said, 6:38. So you will be at home all day alone. Now, are you the type of person who is going to like doing that? I do not believe you are going to. That is going to, and your children are grown. Do you do the fancy work, and do you do the canning of the jars? And, can you do that with your physical this and that and the other for being the healthy specimen that I am? I have this and this problem and that problem and the other. And I said, no. And he said, now the first year the people will still come to talk with you, and the second year they will not. And oh, wow. And he said, I believe you'd better just keep your work, and I think you will bloom again. You will bloom again. That was the best encouragement I could have ever been given. I'll never forget it. This man telling me, you will bloom again. Now, whether I have bloomed again or not, at least I am in that circle and turning in that circle of influence. Now, when I got in there, I didn't jump in. When I finally did get, so I could go back into the work, I didn't jump in all at once. In fact, I just started walking the circle again. And for instance, I've been in about a year and a half again, and there's one area that I'm just now getting to this year. I couldn't get it to it all at once. You say, well, do you have to jump in there and pick up all the pieces at once? No, you can't. You can't pick up any pieces, people. A lot of times we say, I'll pick up the pieces later. That makes us seem too superior. We're not that indispensable that we've got to jump in there and pick up all the pieces at once. That sounds as if the people doing the job, we have to pick up the pieces. They need us again, hopefully. But if you didn't have them depending on you all that much, then you don't have to jump in all at once and start running in circles. You just not run, but walk the circle. And start doing what you can with Christian womanhood, and then on to the office, and then on to the classes. Or if it's cleaning and cooking and clothes, you can't get it all. Maybe you won't get it all the way you want it at first. You've been sick, say, as a homemaker for a week, and you won't be able to clean your house and get it spring house cleaning type clean. But you can pick up a little bit and get the refrigerator cleaned out and organized a little bit, and then go on to the clothes. And just do the clothes that have to be done. Maybe you won't get the winter clothes if it's summer. You won't get the winter clothes just the way you would like to get them done, and it's getting toward winter time, but get the ones done for just the next week. And maybe they won't be just and decorating. Of course, you won't get to do that at all because that isn't needed at this time. But you are in the circle again. Now, of course, you who say, hey, who are you talking to, Marlene? I'm 23 years old. I have 2 children. I've been sick. I've got to get back in the circle. I realize that you're not going to have little babies keeping this circle of influence going for you. I realize you've probably had to call on outside help to take care of your children. You can't just, hope that they're not that dependent on you so that you can be sick a week or so. Yeah, they are that dependent on you. So you're going to have to apply this to your own life as it is right now. But you can. And apply it as well as you possibly can. Now, I'm going to give you 5 points. 5 things that I really believe will help you keep your circle of influence going as well as possible at all times. Keeping all areas of life going smoothly, going well at once. The first point, develop people. Now, if you have a Sunday school class, be sure that someone's watching over your shoulder and that they're watching you teach that Sunday school class. If you've had the Sunday school class a couple years, by now surely you have maybe you're 24, 25 years old. Surely you have a couple teenage girls, unless they have their own Sunday school class going, that you could be training to step in to co-teach your Sunday school class for a few weeks should you be sick. Or maybe it's not even sickness. Sometimes, folks, I walk away from the circle just because I want a mini vacation. You say, the doctor that I was talking about said, a mini vacation or a many vacations? Carol Fry was talking with him, and he asked her that, and she said, both, many and many. Of course, our preacher, Dr. Howes, teaches this. And a mini vacation can be a couple minutes, just resting your mind, relaxing your mind. Or it can be an hour. But we need many, many vacations. And perhaps we walk away on purpose from the circle and know that we're not going to make our rounds to a particular part of the circle. Maybe we really take off and go away for a 2-week vacation, and we leave the circle completely on purpose. So maybe you leave your Sunday school class on purpose to go with your husband. Maybe you leave it for one Sunday and take 2 weeks but leave one Sunday, and you have people prepared because you've been developing them all the time, realizing that there's going to come a time that you're going to need to walk away from the circle. It's a wonderful thing to come back and know that not only is your Sunday school class it's been well taken care of, but that some people have been developed. If you should be working in a school, Christian school, of course a church, how many areas there are. I remember when my husband and I, at 24 and 25 years of age, went to our first full-time Christian work, a church in Hendersonville, North Carolina. We did the janitor work. My husband and I both did the janitor work. We got paid, I think, $15 a week for doing the janitor work. We did the bulletin. I typed it. We took it downtown to the Sinclair office company downtown in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and at that time they ran it off for us. We ran the bus. The bus happened to be our car, but we ran the bus. My husband preached the sermons. We saw to it that the flowers were supplied. Little by little, we developed people. And people began helping us. We did all the visiting at first. And soul winning at first it was us, my husband and I. And then the Paul Perry family came in to help us. And that was 4, Nancy and Paul, and their sons Roy and Richard. And at the time, I think Roy and Richard were about 11 and 13. And one time Nancy and I'd go together, and Paul and my husband would go together, and the next time the boys and I would go, and Paul and Nancy would go, and then we just switched around. But there were 6 of us going out soul winning, and then Mrs. Harden joined us, and therefore you don't worry about the fact that the whole church doesn't come out for soul winning at one time. You're just glad one family comes. And you develop them. And soul winning, you're not worried about soul winning on, if soul winning night is Thursday night, you're not worried about that on Sunday morning. That's where we get so messed up and so frustrated, is because we worry about it all. We try to think of it all at the same time, instead of waiting until we get around. I admire Dr. Howe so much. I know, of course, everybody wonders how in the world does he do all that he does. But, he has times for everything. And I know there's times, I'm sure, that he isn't always able, but almost always, he's able to be, if he's meeting with the college people, or if he's, I'm taping this tape on a night when he's been out here to meet with the college girls at the college. And then on Saturday morning, he meets with my husband and Dr. Jorgensen about the business of the college. And he counsels people from the college certain times and at the church. And Saturday night, he has a meeting teaching preaching to the preacher boys. And so there are certain times that he has for the college. And then how does he pray for his people? He designates a certain time to pray for the people. And I don't know if it's on the plane when he goes Monday and Tuesday to preach to people. You say he seems like he's everywhere preaching, just on Mondays and Tuesdays. Therefore, he's always with us on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. I've been at the church, First Baptist Church in Hammond, 15 years, and I think I remember about twice, maybe 3 times, in that time that he wasn't in the pulpit. It was because he planned not to be for certain specific reasons. And, of course, he had developed people to take care of things during those 2 or 3 times that he was gone. So whether you're in full-time Christian work, whether you're a 23, 24, 25-year-old homemaker, maybe I'm oversimplifying it. I don't know. I don't think so. We do not have a lot of circles. May I say it again? We just have one circle. And we keep walking the circle of influence. Go round and round and check. All right, if it's this point 1, if it's developing people, go round and check with your people. I know you say, I'd rather do it myself. I'm not going to ask somebody else to do my job. They won't do it the way I want it done anyway. I'd just soon do it, and then I know it'll be done. Then you're going to limit your circle of influence greatly. No matter how great you are, you may be the greatest person at what you're doing that there is. Maybe there is no one greater in all the world. But you're one. Whereas, if you take 3 or 4, maybe lesser people, and develop them, you don't know who they're going to develop in turn, and you don't know where it's going to end. So you're really going to limit your influence if you don't develop people. Here are some ways that might help you develop people where you won't be so frustrated. When you give a job away, and one of your babies, so to speak, don't we hate to give our babies away? No, I don't mean our children. I mean something we've always done. We always did the bulletin for the church, or we always did our own lawn work, or we always did our own sewing, or whatever it was. And now we find maybe, we have decided we want to take on a new job in the church and we're just not going to be able to do everything. All right, then ask the person that you're asking to help you. Maybe you're giving some sewing to someone who's going to help you, or you're hiring a seamstress. Ask them how they're going to do the work. Ask them what they feel it won't work, or who isn't working, or why won't it work, or this type of thing. For instance, if I get something I'm doing here at the college, I do a lot of the telephoning of the girls during the summer, being the dean of women. But now I have students and other staff and faculty members who help me. But sometimes I'm not around during the summer for a couple of days, and I come back in and it hasn't been going. So I need to say, well, now, why isn't it working? What can I do to make it work? Instead of getting all upset about it, and getting all bent out of shape about it. I was talking to a man recently who, my husband and I were visiting with him in a restaurant, and we knew he had a AAA welding company, I think it is, on 41 here in Hammond area. I had known that he was now building a shopping center. And then he told us he had a son in military academy up in Sturgis, Michigan at Howe Military Academy. He goes to see him every couple of weeks. So he has family. He has construction work going. And when we were talking with him, we said, you always like to wear work clothes, and you're in a suit today. Not a tie, but an open shirt and suit. He said, well, I'm building a shopping center. And we said, your workers respect you more if you're in these type of clothes? He said, no, it's not that. It's so I won't stop and do the job myself. He said, if I stop, and I said, why? He said, if I stop and do a job myself, I'm lost. I have to keep making the rounds, or he said, the other day I hired a crane, and for 2 days I wasn't over there seeing about it, and they were just sitting there waiting to ask a question, and I was paying the rental on a crane that was doing nothing. Because he stopped and did a job himself that he should, that he shouldn't have done, in his case, and that he should have kept walking his circle of influence. When you're giving an assignment to a person, role play this assignment. Let the person talk back, say something back to you, and say, now would you let's act it out so that I'll know I gave it to you in a correct way. Tell them what the obstacles might be so that they won't be hit by the obstacles and come back and say it can't be done. If the person says, I know, then say, well, could we go over it again for my benefit? A lot of people won't let you explain because they don't want you to act like they're so dumb they don't know. Just say, well, could we go over it so for my benefit? Give clear-cut goals and deadlines and ask, can we make a certain deadline? Define exactly what you mean. Help them know the importance of what they're doing, why you're doing it, why it's important. Transfer the burden of the whole thing. Realize that when you give something away, there might be some mistakes, but if you do it yourself, there might be some mistakes too. Just don't dwell on the mistakes. If the person or people ask too many questions and you don't have the answer, so you get frustrated, give some common sense answers. And write your questions down. Then go back and check with someone else and be sure and get the right answers and come back if you have to change. because it's just too frustrating to keep saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. After giving the assignment, have the person tell you in his words what you said, so as to see if he's thinking the same way. Compare thinking. After 1 or 2 days, get with the person and check in with them to see what you can do to help. This check will show if they have the idea. Check in with them, not check on them. If they don't have the idea, adjust and reteach and give more help. Don't tell them they're doing wrong. You probably didn't teach right. Just let's try this. Checking in avoids the needs, completely avoids the need for scolding. And this goes for your children when you've given them a job. A lot of times the reason we're having to scold our children is because of the fact that we haven't given enough instruction or we're not walking that circle. I know lots of times I've said to my little children, when they were little, I've said, go make that bed, not giving them enough instruction and not going and checking and working with them and checking in with them, and then when they didn't do it right, scolding them about it. And it's really our fault. And therefore, we shouldn't put the blame on them. Number 2, in how to keep the areas of your life going smoothly all at once, keep calmly going in a circle. So you're going to laugh and say, yeah, I'm running in circles, okay. Going in circles, that's one of the things that sometimes they call the WMS meetings, going in circles in the churches. And they laugh and talk about going in circles. It isn't circles. It's a circle. Just one circle. Your life is a circle of influence. Calmly go in the circle. As long as you do this, it's as if you are actually there in all those places. Your influence is felt. Your presence lingers because you've just been there or you're just coming. You must keep going and never get stopped at one spot. That is the trick. So many times I want to stop and do just something I'm enjoying doing. Now sometimes I do stop. But you have to consider the consequences. When you stop at one place in the circle too long, then nothing will be going the way you want it with your flavor, at least, in the other places. It might be going right. But if you want your flavor, you keep calmly going in the circle. Now, I mentioned number 3. If you're out of work due to sickness, vacation, day off, operation, going to be with your children, any reason, don't expect the circle to be where you want it when you get back. Don't even expect it. Don't criticize something that was done because you weren't there in the circle. Just see to it that you get back in the circle again, and not all at once. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've just got to come in here, and I don't know what to do first. What to do first is just to decide where you're going to enter the circle. And once you enter the circle, keep walking. Often I think, now who have I been with last? Sometimes Mrs. Hayes will call my office and say, I'll need to see Mrs. Evans soon before we get too much more material for whatever the next month paper is. And I always feel a little bad about that, not because she called, but because I didn't get to her sooner. She shouldn't have to call. I should be already to her before she needs me to put my influence in and my input into the paper that she wants to reflect me because I'm the leader of the paper. Or it's all right, and all. But I wonder now, Mrs. Moffat, she's been going pretty long time just on her own, and I wonder she doesn't need to talk with me. And I stopped to try to think, where have I been the last in my circle of influence? A circle of influence of work, circle of influence of friends, circle of influence of family, whatever it is. every once in a while I'll think, now when did I last talk to, it doesn't seem like I know much about what's going on with Nancy Perry down in Hendersonville, North Carolina, my friend from more than a quarter of a century. Or Annie Ruth McGuire, a close friend from Chattanooga days. Or Mrs. Holbrook, my Sunday school teacher. And I'll think I haven't called. I haven't called her for a while. And so I see to it that I call her. It keeps everything pretty well running the way that you want it to run. Number 4, when you have to get off the merry-go-round for an emergency, or say it's a conference at your church, or daily vacation Bible school, or a revival. Here at our church, we have 3 nationwide conferences a year: youth conference, pastor school, the Ladies Spectacular. Say it's one of those, or like I say, the youth revival or the Bible school or what daily vacation Bible school. Plan ahead if possible. A lot of times there's chances to plan ahead. Don't make so many. All right, if we have pastor school going on one week in March, and we know we have it here at First Baptist Church of Hammond, and we know the activities department either is attending or maybe helping in some way, or has a booth, a table in room 200. Those of you who come to pastor school know what I'm talking about, something that will tell about the school. Then we don't have a big activity plan the same week out at the college. So you can see to it that if you have something coming up, that you have fewer demanding activities the week of Bible school or whatever it is. If you're a daily vacation Bible school teacher and you're going to be at the church every day that week, perhaps you want to put some casserole dishes away in the freezer before that week. Or you want to make some patties of hamburgers and put them in those little individual Tupperware things, so you can just pull them out and you have it all seasoned and ready to go. Or perhaps you want to see to it that might be one of the times that you go out to eat that week. Maybe you have coupons all ready to go, and that's the day that you get two breakfasts for the price of one. And the family goes out, and you hardly ever go out for breakfast, and it's a really nice treat, and your family really isn't suffering at all because you're going to daily vacation Bible school every week. Know some things in your circle that won't be exactly how you might want them, and have a known tolerance level for yourself. If you're going to help in daily vacation Bible school all week, maybe you're going to have to not have your preference level at home that week. Maybe you won't have the cleanup done just exactly as well as you usually have it. Because if you do try to have the cleanup, the clothes, and do some decorating too, and also go to Bible school, and all of this, then your sleep's going to suffer. And if your sleep suffers, you're going to get mad at one of the kids at daily vacation Bible school and show yourself and not act much like a Christian. You say, I got to get it all done. I got to do it all. No, you don't. You can do some extra cleaning the week before and the week after. But if you spill something on the stove that week, you don't have to tear the whole stove apart during the week of daily vacation Bible school at the expense of your getting some sleep. And it's not just sleep you need either. I talked to a person recently she just looked, I hate to say she looks stale. She might say I look stale. I've never called a person stale exactly before, but have you ever felt that way? You felt like an old stale piece of bread. You looked like that too. Oh, you were clothed and in your right mind, but your eyes are dull. And I said to the person, I knew she hadn't gotten enough sleep recently, and I said, what about your sleep? She said, I got some extra sleep. I said, what haven't you gotten? Have you done something you just wanted to do? And she said, yes, Yesterday, I really did take the whole day and went to a place that I like to go to, an enjoyable town, and one of the older towns around here, and looked in the shops, and I really did, and I said, well, what? Something's still not right. And she said, I haven't really just had a day at home to just clean and just, I said, have you done physical work? And she said, no. And I said, are you missing it? She said, yeah, that's it. That's what I'm missing. I don't know if I'd ever miss physical work again, but sure we do. Whether it's exercise that we have to do carefully because we have some kind of physical ailment or whatever, yes, we do miss some type of physical exercise or work. And I said, take a half day and go home and do that type of thing. She doesn't have children at home, and her husband goes to school and works, and therefore she doesn't spend a lot of time at home, and her home looks nice all the time. But there were just things, she was just ready to tear into the house and do some special things. And so, again, even in your emotional life, your physical health might be good, but your emotional health might not be good, because of the fact that you haven't done the exercise or the like I said, the physical work, the getting out in the garden and digging, if that's the kind of thing that you like to do. Personally, I have to have some time that I see trees every day, and I'll schedule it. I'm working tonight now at 10:30, and I'll be working a little while longer. And I got up at 5 this morning, and have been working a long, long day. But a couple times during this day, I went out to the trees. I took a ride out into the woods and enjoyed it thoroughly. And I don't feel as tired as I would have felt if I had just kept working all day long. Some days I need to lie down and take a nap. Other days I really need to get out and just see nature. And so I need that emotional health, that mental health, that physical health. You have to plan for all of that. So you have this circle. There's a lot of X's all the way around it, but it's still one circle. Have fewer things at a time when you know that there might be a nationwide conference going on, or a section of your country, that kind of some type of conference you're having at your church for your section of the country, or a few states, whatever. Have fewer things at this time, but have what you do have going as high of quality as possible. Like I said, you might not have the stove completely cleaned throughout like you usually would like, but have it as high a quality as possible. But still have your tolerance level, be ready to accept your tolerance level rather than your preference level. Realize that you can't really pick up pieces. They're gone forever. If you were sick 2 years, you can't come in and you're already having a difficult time making your re-entry anyway. I have a time re-entering. I don't know about you, but most people, I think, do. After an operation or when they've been gone, they know people are going to be asking, how are you doing? They don't know exactly how to explain because they're doing pretty good, but they're not 100% yet. And for 1 hour, they think they're doing great, and the next hour, they're not doing so good. They fade fast, and you don't know whether you want visitors or you don't want visitors. I can remember one time when I said I didn't want visitors, and then no one came, and then I felt people were neglecting me. Oh, you're so emotionally unsound. And so you're coming back in. And the longer it's been, of course, the more difficult it is. You're coming back in, and everybody thinks, they're back, everything's fine. And it isn't. You kind of just at first need to sort of sit down and just sit in your office, or if you're a full-time homemaker and you're coming back after being sick, you sort of need to sit down in the kitchen or the dining room or the living room and just sort of look and just say, I'm back, and think, and just if it's an office, don't tear through all the pile up of work there is. I can get myself into such a frenzy that way. I can think, oh my, I didn't do this, oh I didn't do that, what am I going to do about that, what am I going to do about this? Instead of just now I sort of try to find the get well notes and letters and love notes and letters and just read them first, that first day. And then sort of just walk out in the hall and say hi to a few people. You can't pick up 2 years again. You can't make up for 2 years. You can't make up for a week. You just gotta get in the circle and start in again. Those pieces are gone forever. And besides, like I say, this teaches too much dependency on the leader when you think the leader's got to come back and pick up all the pieces. Just start on the circle again. I guess you've heard me say it enough times, haven't you? Remember the story of the tortoise and the hare? Sometimes you let some things go just to avoid going crazy. But the one that just kept going, just slowly kept going. I don't say that you have to go at a slow pace, though. You might be one who walks pretty fast. You walk your circle pretty quickly, and you keep going around pretty quickly. That's okay. Whatever your pace is, though, just start going that pace. Let's see, that was 4. I gave you a lot of points under each one. Let's go back over them. Number 1, develop people so you can run 3 or more things at once, or 23 or more things at once. And number 2, keep calmly going in the circle. Number 3, if you're out of the circle for a while, what to do, that you will be out, know that you will be out, and don't criticize for something that was done when you were there in the circle. And number 4, when you have to get off the merry-go-round for a while, it's going to keep going. The merry-go-round's going to keep going around. You wait until your horse comes around again and jump on it. And just keep going. And then number 5, if you haven't already trained people, begin training someone to be you. Number 5. If it's in your home and your daughter's getting a little bit older, begin to train her to do the things you would do if you weren't there. That's for her good, it's for the family's good, it's for your good. This isn't a lazy person. This is a person, because when you train other people, you're far from lazy. Because you have to train, you have to develop, you have to think for, you have to do for, plan for, pray for, come back and supervise. And so if you're doing it in a good way, it's far from being lazy. This isn't make other people do your work so you don't have to do any work. This is train other people so that when the times come that you have to be out, someone can take over for you. What will it do for that daughter? She's 10, 11, and 12 years old. What will it do for that daughter if you train her to take your place? It'll help her to be able to go ahead and have a home when she's married, or when she goes out and gets an apartment of her own, or she goes into a college dormitory, she'll be able to do the washing, her own washing. There are girls who go out to a college dormitory and don't know that they can't put a red skirt in with all the white things in the washer. And they have all pink lingerie. And they didn't plan it that way because they were not trained to take your place. If it's in a job situation, ask if you can talk with someone else who maybe has another department next to you, and see if they can look in on your job and you can look in on theirs. So you could take their place or they could take yours, because it's going to happen that you're going to need to help one another. There are people who say, I can't get off. There's no way I can ever get off. Well, I'm sorry, but what if your mother died? Would you not go to the funeral? What if all of a sudden you have fainted? You'd be gone for a while, for a few hours, if not for the day, if not for a week. Would you not get somebody else to take your place? Then begin training other people. Not just to do the job, but to help them, to give the atmosphere of the home. If you had to leave your home and your 12-year-old daughter was doing some of the work of the home, could she also make the atmosphere? Would she be doing it like saying, oh, I have to do this, but I don't want to? Or would she say, she knows already what simple things she'd make. Maybe she knows how to make chili. So she'd say, we're going to have chili tonight. And make a big thing out of it, and promote an atmosphere for the younger children or for her father, whatever she had to do. Have you already also taught her how to promote an atmosphere? How to keep the relationships going. I was going over some of the relationships the other day that I have. I only have about 26 people. That's a lot. Some people would think, other people don't think it's very many at all. I have about 26 people that I know I pull from. I go back to Dad and the Evanses, my husband's folks, and of course my husband, and Joy and her husband, and my grandson. Now, it's added, we've added to that, because Joy and Jeff have Jordan, so I have Jordan, David and his wife, Kathy, and Aunt Leela, who was like a second mother to me, Nancy Perry, the Smiths, that's my sister, and her husband, and her daughter, and her son, and now her son is away at school at Bob Jones University, and I've been doing some planning about some things I can do to keep my relationship with my nephew, who is now hundreds of miles away. And the Emerys, my sister in Dallas, Texas, and her husband, and her daughter, and her son, and Mrs. Holbrook, my Sunday school teacher, and Annie Ruth, my friend in Chattanooga, and her mother, Mrs. Reed, and of course I could go to Dr. and Mrs. Robertson, who are my pastor and wife there, and Mrs. T.G. Green, who was a very good friend of mine and who is very sick now, and then people who work with me here at the college, Pat and Jojo and Carol and Mary and Arliss and Carol Ann and Linda, and there are about 26 to 30 people that I feel, and I haven't named all of them, but people from whom I pull. If I pull from them, then I'm going to have to put into them. Because if I haven't put into them, I won't be able to pull from them very long. And I don't mean pull from them to do my work. I mean emotionally I pull from them. I enjoy them. I enjoy talking with them. I need them at different times. They're my support group. And so I have to keep going in that circle, and they also are in my circle. Not only are they in my circle of protection, but I would include this life circle, this circle of influence, would be also my circle of protection. So there would be X's all around in which they would be there, and I'd have to keep putting into them if I want them someday to be people from whom I can pull. Oh, it's getting to sound a little complicated to me, and I didn't want it to sound complicated. I wanted it to sound so simple, does it? We don't have a lot of circles. We have one circle. And if we want to do everything decently and in order, we need to keep moving around the circle. Not frantically. Not panicking. You see, we don't want to be running from emergency to emergency. Let's say I'm a full-time homemaker, and I love cooking. And I'm over here at the one corner. I'm looking at this lectern. And I'm staying at the corner, like it were the circle. I'm staying with the cooking. And all of a sudden the kids yell, "Mom, there aren't any clothes." Oh, I gotta run over here and get the clothes. You're in emergencies all the time that way. And then, someone's coming and we haven't cleaned for I don't know how long. I gotta run to do the cleaning. You're always you're always panicking that way. And this other way, you're always seeing to it that you can keep the areas of your life going smoothly all at once. Let's do everything decently and in order. Let all things be done decently and in order.